federal agents show up outside a D.C. elementary school as students arrive for class. Who they were looking for.
A brush fire in Montgomery County now contained. The surprise for one woman in Gaithersburg as she helped neighbors get away from the smoke and flames.
Hey friends, I have your opening day forecast, and also we're headed for the 80s. Let's talk about it coming up.
It cost the Commonwealth of Virginia nothing to increase the maximum unemployment benefits for these federal employees.
A request helped fired federal workers in Northern Virginia. Fairfax County leaders worried about the economy have a plea to the governor.
A sweet send-off for the UMD women's basketball team. The excitement as the Terps get ready for the next game in the Big Dance.
You're watching the station covering all of the DMV. This is DC News Now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for DC News Now at 9 o'clock. I'm Chris Flanagan.
And I'm Susan Tran. Tonight, we are learning why federal agents showed up at an elementary school in the district this morning. And we're talking both the Department of Homeland Security and public school systems. They are commenting. DC News Now's Ben Dennis is joining us live there in Northwest outside of Henry Cook Elementary School.
So, Ben, what do we know about why these agents showed up?
Chris, Susan, speculation initially swirled this morning after these agents showed up, and the thought was that they were ICE officials. Turns out the Department of Homeland Security says that wasn't the case when some of these personnel showed up to the parking lot right here in the Adams Morgan neighborhood. The Department of Homeland Security says immigration enforcement was not happening. And DC Public Schools told us that Homeland Security investigations personnel tried to detain a healthcare contractor assigned to the school by DC Health, saying those agents tried to detain them within the fenced-in parking lot. But administrators requested to see the agent's ID and a warrant. Federal officials then left, and the school system contacted DC Health to let them know about the situation and follow up with that health contractor's employer. Now, questions initially swirled about why these agents were here. The specific kind that did show up conduct federal criminal investigations into the illegal movement of people, goods, money, contraband, weapons, and sensitive technology. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security's website. Of course, the White House has ramped up their deportation efforts of undocumented people, including and excluding people with criminal backgrounds. But we're told that's not what was happening at the school. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson told me that agents that were here on campus were, quote, unrelated to any kind of enforcement action. I asked exactly why they did show up. They did not respond. In Northwest, Ben Dennis, back to you.
All right, so many questions there, Ben. Thanks. Meanwhile, in Virginia, Arlington Fire battling this house fire this afternoon. You can see here flames shooting out of the attic and through the roof. This is on 24th Road North near North Fillmore Street. No word if anyone was home when that fire started. Of course, when we learn more, we'll pass it along both on air and online.
Over in Maryland, an update on a brush fire here in Gaithersburg. Firefighters have been able to put out the flames here at Brink and Whiteman Road. We had a crew in the area and spoke with a woman who learned about the flames when a neighbor pounded on her door. She then went to warn other families and helped to make sure that everyone got away from all that smoke.
And we came up here, and that's when we just saw all sorts of smoke. And finally, we started hearing sirens, and 3 trucks came up here. And we have no fire hydrants here, so they had to bring in the tankers.
Now, she says at first it seemed like the flames were going towards all of their homes, but the wind shifted and blew in the other direction. Firefighters say that the fire did not reach any homes and no one was hurt.
All right, Chief Meteorologist Janessa Webb is here, and more on this. And Janessa, we had ripe conditions and windy and dry weather out there.
Yeah, red flag warnings, they have expired at this time because the winds have calmed down. And so that's going to be super helpful. Still super dry across the DMV. It's a beautiful night out there, but what's different from tonight and the last couple of nights, you don't see this camera shaking, right? Finally seeing that storm system that we dealt with yesterday kind of pushing offshore, and that's helping things starting to clear out with this wind flow. Buffalo, 10 to 15 miles per hour, up to about 20 out towards Luray, but DC now 5 to 10. So you can see it's pretty sporadic across these areas. Really after midnight, winds will start to die down. The red flag warning has expired, but the drought condition still remains on a severe status for DC, stretching into Anne Arundel County and sections of eastern Maryland. So any small spark is going to give way to increased fire situation. There is a storm system to our north, but DC and parts of the DMV, we will remain dry, but it's going to be a very cool start tomorrow. I mean, I have some spots that'll be just below the freezing mark, upper 20s. We'll take a look at that coming up.
All right, thank you so much, Janessa. Now to a live-in nanny who pleaded guilty for her role in a double murder in Northern Virginia will now be sentenced at the end of the year. FFX Now reports that Juliana Magalhaes will be sentenced on December 19th. That way she can testify against her former employer, Brendan Banfield, whose murder trial is set for October. Now, prosecutors say that he and the 24-year-old au pair, they were having an affair. They say that she was part of this plot with Banfield to murder his wife and another man back in 2023. Magalhaes is expected to be sentenced to time served in December and then be deported back to Brazil.
A group of federal workers is suing the Trump administration. ACLU is representing employees who say they have been unlawfully punished for participating in diversity, equity, and inclusion activities, and that the administration is violating their First Amendment and civil rights. They're now asking the Merit Systems Protection Board to give them their jobs back and pay them for lost wages. There's a push in Northern Virginia to increase how much money recently fired federal workers get paid while on unemployment. It comes at the same time as we could see a hike in unemployment benefits for all Virginians. DC News Now's Max Marcella joining us live outside the Fairfax County Government Center. And Max, what is actually behind this effort?
Well, Chris, this effort comes from a letter from some Fairfax County supervisors sent to Governor Youngkin and Democratic leaders. And what they say is Virginia's unemployment benefits and how much people get paid, it lags behind neighbors, Maryland and D.C. So they say this is a good time to address it, considering how many former federal workers are now asking and filing for unemployment. As former federal workers across the region look for their next jobs, Fairfax County supervisors are worried about the layoffs' impact on the local economy.
The repercussions of these job losses are far-reaching.
Led by Chair Jeff McKay and Supervisor James Walkinshaw, the board sent this letter to Richmond leaders, including the governor, saying right now the help those workers are getting is meager.
What Virginia offers today doesn't allow families to pay their mortgage, doesn't allow families to pay their groceries, doesn't help those small businesses who rely on those federal employees and contractors as customers to stay open.
In Virginia, unemployment benefits are capped at $378 a week. It's $430 in Maryland, $444 in D.C. What makes federal workers' claims unique is that it's reimbursed by the federal government, so Walkinshaw says now is the time to increase that amount.
So it costs the Commonwealth of Virginia nothing to increase the maximum unemployment benefits for these federal employees.
Fairfax County's letter calls for an additional $600 per month to those affected by these federal cuts, similar to Virginia's COVID policy.
The $600 a week additional unemployment insurance during COVID was a lifesaver for so many Northern Virginia families.
Separate from that, the General Assembly approved a measure that would increase everyone's unemployment benefits by $100 a week, though the governor instead is proposing a $52 increase.
Virginia families.
Now, we know you get your unemployment benefits from the state in which you worked, but it also is worth noting that there was a report that found, at least back in 2023, there were 175,000 Northern Virginians who had jobs with the federal government. Again, that scale, and we don't know how many were laid off, but that scale of how many federal workers there are in this area is why these supervisors here in Fairfax County are concerned about their local economy. Reporting live in Fairfax County, Max Marcella, DC News Now.
All right, Max, thanks for that update. Now let's get a live look at the White House. President Trump officially putting a 25% tariff on all imported cars and calls the move a way to increase U.S. manufacturing. But for now, car makers are still relying on this global supply chain, which could mean it could cost us more to buy a car and lead to fewer cars being sold. This is all part of President Trump's reciprocal taxes on all countries that put a tariff on U.S. goods, and they go into effect April 2nd. 2nd. All right, the Maryland Terps are on fire, both the women and men's team, off to Sweet 16. In fact, the women getting here a really lovely send-off. They had a thrilling win in double overtime on Monday.
They certainly did. Yeah, that big send-off today as you get ready to play South Carolina, the #1 seed on Friday. DC News Now's Tiger Munn was in College Park for all the excitement.
The madness continues in March for the Maryland Terrapins. On Monday, the team survived a double overtime thriller against Alabama right here on this court to move on to the Sweet 16. But on Wednesday, the team was sent off by fans and the team band as they head to Alabama to take on South Carolina.
I know that South Carolina is super hungry. They've talked about it multiple times. They feel like they've been disrespected, and I agree with them. I feel like they've been disrespected, but I also feel like we've been disrespected.
Maryland has been turning heads since the start of the tournament, and to them, they say that the fans have been the main reason for the great play.
And they were truly the X factor for us the other night to help us get to the Sweet 16, and so many people that are excited about us leaving, coming and joining us in Birmingham. I've heard we've sold quite a few tickets, so just the best fans in the country.
I mean, they mean the world. They really got us through the last game, and sometimes I feel like they don't know their worth and how much they impact the team and how much we're grateful for them.
And they'll try to keep it rolling as they take on a juggernaut in South Carolina. This team is confident, but one thing they know, it'll be a fight to win this one.
They're an elite level rebounding team as well as we are, so who can keep who off of the glass, and I'm glad it's on a neutral court as well. So going out, it's March Madness and playing the best 40 minutes that you can.
And Maryland will try to extend their season against #1 seeded South Carolina Friday, March 28th at 5 p.m. Reporting in College Park, I'm Tiger Munn, DC News Now.